Hi, and welcome to the DC Church Podcast. DC Church is a multi-campus church located in Hampton Roads, Virginia. Our desire is to worship God, connect with others, and serve the world. We hope you enjoy this episode of the DC Church Podcast.
In the text, it says, in the Bible, it says, your wife will be like a fruitful vine within your house, your children like young olive trees around your table. How does that sound? That sounds pretty good to me. So I think about what your wife will be like a fruitful vine. We already talked about producing fruit, right? So I don't know about you guys, but marriage is hard. You know, relationships are hard. Marriage is hard. There have been times when I would look at my wife and go, why aren't you doing this? You know, which is when I read this vine, or when I read this passage, it kind of related to me like she's not being fruitful, right? That's what I consider fruit, right? Was something, hey, why aren't you doing what I think you should do? But then I started to think about it. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not, I'm not thinking right about that, right? My wife will be fruitful when she's in alignment with God. So how, and this is post 2014 Ben, okay? Pre 2014 Ben would be like, I'm working 12 hours a day. Why can't you just do this, and this, right? Of course, I would never communicate that. It would just be in my head. But if we are following what the Psalm says, if we fear the Lord and walk in His ways, if we work hard and we are being blessed, right? What does that look like when you are home with your wife and you're in alignment with God and you are nurturing your wife's spiritual journey, right? Wouldn't that be the thing that would make your wife a fruitful vine? What do you guys think?
Well, you mentioned it, Ben, the progression of this psalm, right? It starts with us.
That's right.
And so we can't expect anything out of our wives, anything out of our children, if it's not beginning with us. And that's I love how it just kind of it's us first. How happy is everyone who fears the man that fears the Lord, right? We have to walk in His ways before we can expect that from our families. And if we're not modeling that and teaching that, then there's the breakdown right there.
Absolutely.
Me to go. Here you go, guys. You ready? You ready?
Yes.
Well, look, I can agree with Jim because, getting back to your point, Ben, to get your wife to be this fruitful vine, it's you have to set the example. You have to be the one. If she sees you reading, if she sees you going to study, she's more open to do that.
Yes.
And when she's more open to do that, your kids are more open to do that. Now, Doris and I came a Christian very late in life, and Doris did not. So in the beginning, it was the opposite. It was the opposite. She was the one studying. She was the one going to study. She was the one doing things. And guess what? Our household was chaotic. It was not working. It was not working until, Jim loves to tell the story when they came to visitation over at my house. But that's when it started. When Jim and Brett came over to our house, it kind of, a light switch kind of went off in my head saying, hold on a second. I think this is in reverse here. I'm the one that's supposed to be showing her and the girls, how to read the Bible, what to do. They're supposed to come to me and ask questions. We're supposed to be talking about it like a family. So I agree with that. So when you show your wife that, when you show your family that, that's how she becomes a fruitful vine. Now, since we've done that, very subtle, very little, over time, it's like it's amazing what happens. Now we're, instead of asking questions to trick each other up or to one-up each other. We're now asking questions to try to help each other, and we're trying to grow together. So I think also when she is the fruit of the vine, the vine grows. If you ever had vines in your house or in your garden, Jorge?
In my house.
In your house? Well, look, you know where I live, so I do get them in the house sometimes. You got to pull them out of there. But that's what it is. It just grows and keeps growing and growing and growing, and you just can't get rid of them. And that's what it feels like. So, I'm one of the poor saps that are still working 40-plus hours a week. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a lot of extra time yet. But Doris has been going down. And so fruit of the vine, when I get home, I don't expect it. But dinner's ready.
Yeah.
It's ready to go, and she's there doing that. And now I think that is a product of what we've been talking about.
Absolutely. I love that. And if you guys would permit me, I'd like to read something from John 15:1. This is the Lord speaking. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that does not produce fruit, he removes, and he prunes every branch that produces fruit, so that it will produce more fruit. So here we're given a Psalm 128 where it goes into how your wife will be like a fruitful vine, and the Lord uses that same example for us later to describe how the Father is the gardener. So in way, because we are called to be like Christ to our wives, right, to sacrifice. So we are like a gardener to the vine that our wife would be, right? So we're nurturing, maybe pruning here in a godly way, right? However that leads you. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right on spot. If we're nurturing and caring for our wives, I like Jamie's analogy about the vine, because when you think of a vine finds its ways into every crack and crevice. And you think if you're pouring into your wife and meeting her needs, her influence is going to impact every part of your home, your kids, everything. And I think that, as long as we're investing in them, their influence is going to hit everything.
Absolutely.
As long as it's a godly influence.
Yes.
And they'll understand that if they have a relationship as well. And I think that's where a lot of things get tricky, when there's one working in obedience with God and there's one that's not. I'm blessed to be in the part where she blesses me and I do my best to bless her. But it's a partnership and a relationship, and when both are following in obedience, she's going to infect every room, every person in there in a great way. And she has, because I don't infect every room. She infects every room. I do more damage outside. When you're both working for the same boss, and that fear for the same boss, that obedience for the same boss, is going to be a positive, fruitful infection in the house of the vine, and things you don't want to pull out.
So the analogy is fantastic, of course, because the Lord used it. Think about, what if you took too much fruit from the vine and never gave any nutrition to the plant? How would that affect the vine?
Fruit would dry up.
Yeah.
Well,
kill
exactly. You would kill it, right? So if you're taking from your fruitful vine from your wife, right, but you're never nurturing the vine, like you're killing it. You're killing it, right? And conversely, if you're always feeding, but never taking, then the Lord already told us, you will surely eat what your hands have worked for, right? So nurture and accept the gifts, the fruit that the vine has given. I love it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I think it's why it's so important, and especially during this time, while some of us may have some extra time on our hands, that we need to find ways, David, like you, investing in all these groups you're involved in, and making sure you're keeping in touch with people, but we still have to make sure that we're being nourished as well, and taking that time daily, right, to have God kind of replenish us and nourish us with His Word.
And that happens with people here, not to get too far off the path, but people get so invested in serving and finding places to fill in and fit in and do things, and there's not a point where they're sitting at the table. They're just constantly bringing things to the table, but they're not doing things at the table. And you got to measure kind of too, and you're not looking for results, you're not looking for numbers, but at the same time, you need to be fed.
Yeah, and a Sabbath isn't a suggestion, right? It's not just something we should do. We're commanded to have a Sabbath, and I don't do that as often as I should, but there's a reason that God told us to take a day and just focus on Him.
Right.
I don't know about you. I know about you guys, but I know, like, it says that the wife will produce fruit. That's fruit that we can eat as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that my wife has a gift of discernment that I don't have, and I've made some really bad, stupid choices and the good thing is that she's kind of helped guide me through that. But it's because of the fruit that she's producing in her life that I think we influence one another.
Absolutely.
So.
Yep.
So I'm kind of going to be the elephant in the room, and I think that many times when we read the Bible, it's looking at it from a perspective of a traditional household. And in today's world, I think we kind of forget about other homes that are not traditional. You know, as a divorcee, I look at this verse and I struggle with it. But while I struggle with it, I also look at my life and look at what has God placed in front of me. And every person you meet, everything that you do, it's never a mistake. It's never an error. There's a reason why it happens. And our job is to try to figure that out and try to figure what is the fruit? What am I supposed to get out of this? And so while I don't have a traditional home and it's just me and my children, I look at that and okay, so where's the spouse in this? And for me, to be honest with you, you know, to me that's the church. That is how I feel it with that. And I have friends that, and right now I'm seeing this this lady that is filling that role for me, and it's filling that role for my children. And I look at what is the fruit, and again, this is not a traditional home, and sometimes it's kind of like the Brady Bunch, right? His and hers. And so God places certain people in front of you, and I ask myself, why did God place this person in front of me? Why did God place this person? And so I take a look at that, and how can I be a blessing? How can I be an example so that she may take away with that? And how do we adjust to those roles? Because this, you know, I'm sure there's plenty of homes where there's just a woman in the home and her kids, or a man and his home and kids. So how do we adjust, and what do we fill it with? So I try not to get bummed out about it, but I try to find ways that help me to comprehend and know that and fill that with God. And all I could do is just rely on the Lord, you know. And so the fruit of my labor is, how can I be a good example to my children, and how can I be a good example to the woman that God has placed in front of me. Again, it's not a traditional home anymore, but you know, I still, there's still that role, right? No matter whether there's a title or whether, you know, there is a label on a relationship or whatnot. Our role as men is to lead, and we lead by example, and we lead by submitting ourselves to the Lord, by honoring Him, and going back to that first verse of fearing the Lord. So that's how it is for me. Hopefully it helps other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jorge. So the next verse says, your children are like young olive trees around your table. So I always thought, like, my child like a young olive tree? How does that work? But I didn't know much about olive trees until, you know, I listened to this study. An olive tree is similar to like a palm tree in Hawaii. I spent some time in Hawaii, but, you know, the coconut, they can take that coconut and they can use it in 500 different ways. I mean, it's so fruitful, right? Same way with the olive tree. Apparently, you can take an olive tree, you can have oil, you can have food, you can have all of these things from the olive tree. So, and plus, if you think young olive tree, the young olive trees starts just like we were talking about with the plants. You nurture it, it grows into a big olive tree, and then it starts producing fruit, right? So I think that for me, this is an appropriate description of what the perfect household would look like, and that kind of goes into what Jorge was saying. Now, we live in a broken world, right? So the psalmist here is saying that, I think, that in an ideal world where everybody is fearing the Lord and walking in His ways, this is what we would have, right? So it gives us, I think, it gives me hope and inspiration. I know I'm not here. I'm not even close to being here, right? I know it. But you want confirmation? Just, you know, ask my wife. But I love that this is something that we're told that the Lord wants for us. He wants this for us because He's given us the Scripture, right? In this very way, the man who fears the Lord will be blessed. So what I think this is saying, just to wrap up the family, is if we do the things that the Lord has called us to do with our wife, like she is the fruitful vine that we tend like the gardener, and our children produce fruit around our table, this is the way that we'll be blessed. So I don't have to look to that God-shaped hole. I don't have to go on arms list anymore. I don't have to go on social media anymore, right? I don't have to, have a sub 5 second build drill. What I can do is I can look to the blessing. Don't worry about it. It's a gun thing. I don't have to. All of the worldly things that I once pursued, now I can say, this is the blessing that really counts. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do you guys think? I feel like I'm blessed in my life with my wife and my children. Thank you, God, because I did not. That was not me.
So let me ask: what is a blessing? What is a blessing of what do we consider a blessing of children? Because I think, again, many times when you look at this is looking at it from a perspective of a traditional family, of traditional, the kids grow up, they go to college, yada yada, they get a degree, they find a job, they live happily ever after, they have a home, white picket fence, yada yada, and I'm here to tell you, this is not what happens in today's world. It's a broken world, and so as we set parameters, right, as fathers, because or maybe we have certain expectations that if your children don't follow that path, are they still a blessing? And I struggle with this a lot because to me, I had dreams of or expectations of what my 4 children would do. So we all do. Each and every one of them are different, and they're still a blessing in their own way. And so that's something that I've had to come to terms with. And some of my kids are walking with the Lord, some are not, but
not yet.
So how do I, so how do I come to terms with that? Is it still a blessing? Is it a blessing for me to still love them as they're going through their struggles and not walking with the Lord, or maybe they didn't get that degree, or maybe they didn't go to the college that I wanted them to go? Or maybe they didn't get married or whatnot. Whatever that expectation that we had or that dream of our children, I think that our job is to love them where they're at, kind of similar to what God does with us, right? He loves us where we're at each and every day. And sometimes we deserve, He gives us more than we deserve that day. And so our job is to come to terms with that and look at sometimes what our children are doing as a blessing in their own way, because maybe they're not gifted in that engineering job that you had in mind for them, but maybe they want to be a musician. What's wrong with being a musician? There's absolutely nothing wrong. But you're crushed because they were not that engineer that you thought they were going to be. So I think sometimes our job is to figure that out, love them where they're at, and still guide them and show them the love and the mercy of Christ. Because if God showed that, I'm gonna say, a person who's down in the dumps, God showed mercy and love, what is He going to do for you? And so we're no better than that. That's how I feel, anyways.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that my children have done to bless me it's the simple things. It's really just the hugs. It's when they want to spend time with me. My oldest daughter came back with a milkshake the other day. Right? She thought about her old man. About, you know what I mean? She thought about feeding her old man. I was like, you're on the right track, kid. Someday you're gonna have to do this for real.
She's gonna have to feed it to you.
Well, hey, So, hey, she's going to have a baby someday, Lord willing, and she'll learn how to change diapers, and she may have to come in again, when I get older. You know what I mean? You never know. But it's the little things. So I think about the things that warm my heart about my children. I have similar, Jorge, you and I have talked about, some of the things, I have similar ideas about what my children should have been, but had to come to terms with that. And now on this side of that journey, I want to just have a relationship with them. I just want to have a relationship with them. I don't care about what they bring to the table, except for milkshake.
That's right.
Better bring a milkshake.